Hey folks, I'm so glad you're here today for our herbal chat. This is for the full moon in June, and this month's topic is herbal detox, liver and lymphatic health. Liver and lymphatic health. So we're just gonna get right into it. I'll do a quick introduction of myself, and then we'll dive straight into the topic. If you ever have any questions or thoughts, please reach out to me at brujanaturalofferings@gmail.com. Alright, so my name is Natasha. I also sometimes go by Nosh, and I am a clinical herbalist. I practice a little bit in the US, a little bit in the UK, based out of Scotland, and then I do like virtual and in-person sessions. I do some workshops, one-to-one sessions, group sessions, a little bit of everything. But I love doing these videos. Ideally, there are people who sign on with me, but today I'm just speaking into the box. So yeah, I love doing these sessions because I really feel that herbalism is ancestral wisdom, and it's something that maybe not everyone knew, but it was more accessible. And nowadays, I know, at least for me, when I first was thinking about entering the world of herbs and herbalism, it felt a little bit inaccessible. So I try to do these videos to make them more accessible. So would really appreciate your feedback on that as well. All right, getting right into it. So we're going to start a little bit with what is detox. You hear that thrown around a lot nowadays. I think it's like the trendy thing is to participate in different detoxes, whether they're self-guided or guided in a group or something. But when you talk about detox, it's something that our body is doing every minute of every single day. So there are a lot of different detox pathways that our bodies take when you pee, when you poo, when you breathe. If you are a menstruating body, when you bleed monthly. Your skin is detoxifying. That's like what happens when you get acne. If you are a young person going through puberty and are dealing with hormonal acne, that's your body trying to get rid of any excess hormones or this crazy rage of hormones that's in your body. If you are beyond that stage of your life and you are getting acne, it may be due to diet or to some kind of toxins that you're exposed to, and that's, again, your body just trying to rid yourself of those toxins. So yeah, detoxification is happening all the time. We are going to focus on the liver and the lymph system, both of which have their fingers in kind of everything that I just mentioned. So starting with the liver, your liver is akin to the body's chemical processing plant. So it's a massive internal laboratory. What the liver does is it takes in raw materials like nutrients and hormones, and incoming toxins, whether it's from food, environment, or even your own metabolic byproducts. And what the liver does is it then takes these raw materials, processes, converts, stores, or eliminates them based on what the body needs. So basically, we are taking in so much, whether it's from breathing, from eating, from just being in the environment. And what the liver does is it kind of like processes these things that we're taking in and sorts it. So whether it needs to be stored in our body, whether it needs to be converted into something else to be used by our body, or whether it needs to be eliminated from our body, the liver is that central hub where all of that happens. So there's a few key processes or functions that the liver holds. The first, as we were just talking about, is detoxification. So it does this in a few different ways. It filters your blood. So a lot of herbs that we talk about, not necessarily today, but you might hear in the herb world that there are liver cleansing herbs. And what this generally means is that they support, not liver cleansing herbs, there are blood cleansing herbs. And what this generally means is that they support the liver to process that blood and to cleanse the blood in different ways. So the liver filters your blood. It receives about 25% of your blood every minute, so they're working all the time. What your liver does is they identify substances like alcohol, medications, environmental toxins or excess hormones, and metabolic waste. and then it then neutralizes or converts them into safer forms that can then be eliminated. So for example, bile, which goes through your stool, or urine. So again, what the liver is doing is it's processing everything that the blood is holding, and then it converts them into something that is more easily eliminated, like bile and urine. The liver is also really important for bile production. So the liver actually makes bile, which is a fluid that helps break down fats and carry waste out of the body, as we just mentioned. Bile is stored in the gallbladder and released into the small intestine when needed. The liver is also plays a key role in nutrient metabolism. So it converts raw nutrients from food into a usable form. So what this can look like is, we'll talk in terms of carbs, fats, and amino acids. So carbs, whether it's from fruit, bread, vegetables, the liver will convert carbs into glucose, which we use for energy, or if it needs to be stored, as glycogen. When we take fats into our diet, the liver will convert this into cholesterol or energy. And then when we take in amino acids from protein, so when we're eating protein, digesting protein, the liver will convert this into the individual building blocks, which our body will then use. Or if we're having too much of it, we'll transition it into urea, and that will be eliminated out of the body. The liver also stores essential vitamins and minerals like vitamin A, D, E, K, B12, and iron. The liver plays a critical function in hormone regulation. So what the liver does is they help break down and clear hormones, especially excess estrogen, cortisol, insulin, and thyroid hormones. So you may have seen, if you're in the health and wellness space at all, or even, not even if you're in the health and wellness space, I think it's just so commonplace nowadays. But there's just a lot of estrogen dominance nowadays. And people are talking a lot about cortisol, about stress, and all that stuff. And so the liver is really helpful when we have too much of that in our bodies, whether it's because we're producing too much, whether it's because we're chronically stressed, whether it's because we're exposed to phytoestrogens, or we're exposed to, xenoestrogens, and we're just inundated by all of these things. The liver can be really important in getting those excess hormones out of the body so it's not wreaking havoc. And what can happen is when we have a sluggish liver, when our liver is overtaxed, so let's say we have an overly fatty diet, or we have just an excess of hormones, or we're stressed all the time, these can all lead to sluggishness in the liver because it's just constantly working and eventually will get backed up. This can then impact your body and lead to hormonal imbalances like PMS, fatigue, weight gain, all the things that you associate with like chronic stress, or just hormone imbalances in general. And so there are a lot of herbs that we can work with to support our livers even when they are a little bit overtaxed, and then to support our detoxification pathways. Finally, the liver plays a critical role in immune defense. So the liver contains immune cells that destroy bacteria, viruses, and old blood cells. So if your liver is struggling, you may also have a struggling immune system. So just to summarize all of that up in simple terms, the liver's job is to sort through everything that comes in from the digestive system, so everything we are ingesting into our bodies, everything we're eating. Decide what to keep, what to store, and what to send to the trash, if you will, so what to eliminate from the body. To make important substances like bile and blood proteins, and to break down harmful substances so that they don't damage the body. If the liver is overworked, you might, some symptoms of sluggish liver or liver overwork could include fatigue, brain fog, hormonal issues, so PMS, acne, irritability, digestive complaints, so bloating or constipation, skin issues like eczema, rashes, or acne, and slow recovery from illness or alcohol. So some of the herbs that we might work with here, if these symptoms are consistent with what we would suspect, and if through questioning and experimentation and all that stuff we kind of decide that, okay, it sounds like the liver is a little bit overworked, a little bit sluggish, we might work with things like dandelion, burdock, and nettle, because these gently support and encourage the liver's natural detox work without pushing it too hard. Particularly burdock is a very gentle one. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the burdock. Okay, so shifting gears here into the lymphatic system. So if the liver is kind of like your chemical processing plant or your hub, the lymphatic system is the body's cleanup crew and delivery service. So if we imagine your body as a city, your blood vessels are the highways, and the lymphatic system is the waste management and recycling department, along with part of the emergency response team. So let's focus on that first part, so the cleanup crew, so like the waste and recycling crew. So the main job of this part of the lymphatic system is to remove waste from tissues and cells. So we are producing waste pretty much every single moment of our lives. So as our cells go about our daily work, whether it's breathing, eating, repairing, dividing, they create waste. So this includes dead cells, toxins, bacteria, and viruses. It also includes proteins and fluids that actually leak out of the blood vessels. So these waste materials collect in the space between the cells. The fancy word for that is interstitial space. And the lymphatic system will then pick up these waste materials that are just floating around there and transport them away so that your body can eliminate them. The way that this works is that the lymph system has capillaries. And so what this does is it absorbs fluid and waste from the tissues. So capillaries are like very thin veins, kind of. And so these like poke out into our tissues and interstitial spaces. And what it does is they're kind of like straws. So they absorb and soak up the waste material from our tissues. That fluid then becomes lymph fluid, which flows through a network of vessels. And then along the way, the lymph nodes act like filter stations, capturing and neutralizing pathogens with immune cells, like lymphocytes. So, for example, if you've ever been sick and like you felt your lymph nodes on the side of your neck, you also have them like here in the collarbone, underneath the armpits, behind the knees, in the groin. If you've ever felt any kind of swelling there, that's actually your lymph nodes doing that specific job. So filtering out the lymph fluid from any kind of pathogen. So in this case, you might be ill with bacteria or a virus, and so your lymph is like working really hard to filter all of that out from the fluid. Finally, the final step of this process is that once it goes through your nodes and is filtered, the clean fluid is returned to the bloodstream. So the second part of the lymph system is the delivery service. And the main job of this aspect of the lymph system is to move immune cells and nutrients to the place in your body where they're needed. So besides removing waste, the lymphatic system also transports immune cells, fats from digestion, and large molecules that blood vessels cannot carry. So it delivers immune cells to sites of infection or inflammation. It helps regulate inflammation, and it absorbs and delivers fats from the intestines via specialized vessels called lacteals. So this aspect of the lymph system is really a delivery system. So it's redistributing what needs to be redistributed around your body. I want to just pause here and talk a little bit about how the lymph system is different from the circulatory system or the blood system, because I know at least when I first embarked into this area of herbalism, I got a little bit confused. But essentially, so they are, nothing is really truly separate in the body. Everything is interconnected in some ways, but the circulatory system is different from the lymphatic system. And one of the main key differences is that the circulatory system has a pump, so it has a heart. The heart pumps the blood around the body. In the lymph system, there is no pump, and so in order to move fluid around the lymph system, it requires movement. So you may have seen like bouncing. A lot of people talk about light exercise. Even swimming can be enough to move the lymph, which I know isn't light exercise, but what I mean is you may have also heard of lymph massage. So some people like do some massage on the lymph nodes. Some people do it really, really hard, but really all you need is very light pressure, and this is what I mean when even swimming. So swimming in water, the movement of the water across your lymph nodes could even be enough to help move that fluid through your lymph system. So yeah, any kind of movement, walking, bouncing, massage, swimming, all of those things will help move the fluid through your lymph system. The circulatory system, so the blood, carries nutrients and oxygen, while the lymph system, the lymphatic fluid, carries waste, fats, and immune cells. So they also are responsible for carrying and delivering different things. The circulatory system is a closed loop. So, it goes pretty much in a circuit. That's a very simplistic way to talk about it, but it's a closed loop. There's no input, no output. The lymph system is a one-way system, so it goes from the tissues to the blood. So, what it takes is like all the toxic material, the fats and immune cells in the tissues, and it filters it out and then eventually gives something clean to the blood. We already talked about this. I might actually say a few more things. So circling back to the beginning where we were talking about there's a pump, there's the heart for the blood circulatory system, there's no pump in the lymph system. We talked a little bit about moving. Other ways to help the movement of lymphatic fluid is breathing. So deep diaphragm breathing helps lymph flow. So does hydration. So fluid helps, just being hydrated, having all that extra fluid in your water helps to move the lymph. And then there are also herbs that you can work with, like calendula, which can support lymph flow and elimination. So just as we talked about the liver getting sluggish, if the lymph system gets sluggish, some of the symptoms that you might experience or notice are swollen lymph nodes, fluid retention or puffiness, feeling heavy or tired, frequent colds or slow wounds that are slow to heal, and then skin breakouts or a dull complexion. So I know I've definitely had this before where sometimes like I can tell my face looks like the dewy or whatever you want to call it, like kind of shiny. And that's when I know that my lymph system is really strong and working really well. There are other times where I feel like my skin is very matte. I'm seeing maybe some beginnings of breakout and stuff like that. And that's an indication to me that either my liver, my lymph, or maybe a little bit of both needs a little bit more support. So herbs like calendula can support the lymph system in a few different ways. So it can encourage gentle movement of the lymph. I actually worked with a calendula, oh my god, why am I spacing on the word? Calendula tincture. So it was calendula flowers in alcohol. And I worked with that, and it was so wild because I could actually feel my lymph nodes draining. So I think I took maybe 2 dropperfuls of oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the word again? Whatever I just said. I took 2 dropperfuls of the calendula tincture, and honestly, within 5 minutes, I could feel like a gentle pulling at the sides of my neck, and that's the lymph fluid moving through your lymph nodes at the side of your neck. So calendula is super powerful. That was also a very strong tincture. These herbs can also be supportive in reducing inflammation in the tissues. So the lymph is really important at regulating that inflammation. So if we're also using herbs to help reduce that inflammation, we're easing the work needed from the lymph system. And it also helps, these herbs can also help the kidneys to flush out waste once the lymph has done its job. So in a nutshell, very simply, your lymphatic system keeps your inner world clean and organized. It removes cellular waste, delivers immune support, and balances fluids. And when it's moving well, you feel clear, resilient, and energized. When it's stuck, things slow down and toxins can linger, and you might feel a little bit heavier, feel a little bit more sluggish, not feel as clear. So that is kind of an overview of the liver and the lymph. We're going to move now into herbal support for the liver. So we're going to start with dandelion. Dandelion is super powerful. I think a lot of people have heard of dandelion, are familiar with dandelion, whether it's just as a weed or as an herb. But, there's like in the UK, for example, there's like dandelion and burdock syrup, or maybe it's a soda or something. So I think dandelion is very much in most people's common vernacular. It may not be for yours, and that's okay. So we'll talk about dandelion now. So just a brief, I'll pause again, a brief little insert here. So I am trained in the Western herbal tradition. And in this tradition, we talk about energetics. Many herbal traditions or healing traditions have a similar concept. They're called different things, but like TCM, Ayurveda, all these things have their own way of categorizing or understanding the relationships between herbs. But essentially, these energetics are a combination of hot, cold, wet, dry, tense, and lax. And the idea, kind of more simplified here, is that every herb, basically every body, so every herb, every plant, every animal, every human, even every like element like rock or something, has its own set of energetics. And so as an herbalist, not only are you working with someone's full picture and introducing herbs with that, but you're also looking at what their energetics are and what herbs might be supportive for them. So for example, if someone comes to me and through questioning and working with them, we come to the conclusion that one of their energetics is hot, I wouldn't then want to use a hot herb like ginger with that person because I could actually end up making them more uncomfortable. I might want to work with a more cooling herb to bring them into balance. So I say that all to say, as we talk about the herbs, we'll talk a little bit about the energetics, amongst other things. So in terms of burdock, in terms of dandelion, we're starting with dandelion. This herb is cooling and drying, and they also taste bitter. And bitter is a fascinating flavor. I learned so much. Like, this was one of the most humbling experiences I had when I entered herb school. But bitter is essentially, like, in a nutshell, what that taste, like, our bodies, our human bodies, have evolved to associate the flavor of bitter with being poisoned. And so when we taste something that is bitter, our entire digestive system gets turned on. So we start to salivate, we start to produce more digestive juices, more bile, the mechanical motion, so our stomach starts mechanically moving to help break down whatever it is that we're about to ingest, because what our body is trying to do is to rid ourselves of that poison as fast as possible. So what we can do, and what people have been doing in the culinary world in general, is we can use this to our advantage. So I often administer bitters for people about 20 to 30 minutes before meals, just to prep your body to be able to digest. And this is great for people who might have sluggish digestion, who might have some issues with digestion. And so when you take those bitters, for example, dandelion, you're prepping your body to digest what it is that you're about to eat. So you're giving your body a head start. And yeah, so I absolutely love that this is the story with bitter. This is like something that we've evolved with and that we just don't use enough to our advantage. Like, we do not eat enough bitters in our lives. But anyway, so dandelion is bitter, cooling, drying. They stimulate the liver and the gallbladder, which, as we talked about before, is a really important aspect of the detoxification pathway. They're a mild diuretic and a gentle laxative. So the root has more laxative action and the leaf has more diuretic action. So again, supporting detoxification by stimulating urination and pooping. This is also a digestive aid, as we just talked about, especially for sluggish or damp digestion. Dandelion is best for people who feel heavy, bloated, or sluggish after eating. So if you experience that after you eat a meal, it might be supportive to incorporate some dandelion, whether it's through a tea or through a tincture, as long as you're getting that bitter flavor on your tongue. Those who are dealing with acne, PMS, or headaches that are related to poor liver function. So again, remember, your liver is helping your body to get hormones out of your system. And so if you're dealing with acne, if you have increased PMS or headaches, this is an indication that your body's a little bit overloaded with hormones. And so working with dandelion could be supportive for that. And also for anyone needing gentle daily liver and digestive support. So dandelion specifically supports detox by stimulating bile flow and helping the liver process and eliminate wastes efficiently. This makes it a great ally for daily detox and digestive support. So again, dandelion is like super gentle, a really great herb to incorporate in your daily routine, and I highly recommend it. But it's important to get that bitter action is to actually taste the flavor of bitter. So it's important to not try to mask that anyhow or anyway. So moving into burdock, the energetics of burdock are moistening and cooling. So where dandelion is a bit more drying, burdock is a bit more gentle, and then it's a bit more moistening. So great for those people who are running dry. It's also a little bit sweet and slightly bitter, although not nearly as bitter as dandelion. They are a deep liver and blood cleanser. They also move the lymph, so great for the liver and the lymph system. So it's kind of like hitting those two systems in one. Mildly bitter and nourishing, supports elimination through liver, kidneys, and skin. So this burdock is best for people with skin conditions like acne or eczema related to internal toxicity. Those who are feeling overheated, inflamed, or stagnant in both body and mind, and individuals recovering from long-term stress or overexposure to environmental toxins. So in terms of how burdock supports detox, burdock works deeply to help the liver clear the blood and supports the lymph in carrying waste out of our tissues, making it ideal for long-term foundational detox. So you'll see also that burdock is recommended in a lot of cases for young people who are going through puberty, who are dealing with that hormonal acne, anyone who might be developing acne or any kind of skin conditions related to, like, you know, if you live in a place with a lot of mold or if there's environmental toxins, microplastics, that kind of thing. Burdock can be really supportive for that. Okay, we are going to end here with nettle. Nettle is drying and warming, and nettle is very drying. So if you yourself or you are working with someone who is drying, you want to avoid nettle because it can actually irritate them even more. This herb is also salty, slightly bitter, and that comes from them having so many minerals in their tissues. So they are a mineral-rich tonic, not toxin. Nettles are a mineral-rich tonic. They're a gentle lymphatic mover, a mild diuretic, and an anti-inflammatory. So this is great for people who have low energy, chronic inflammation, or poor circulation. Also great for folks experiencing fluid retention, allergies, or sluggish elimination. So, for example, if you hold on to food for a long time before eliminating, this would be a good herb for you to experiment with. Anyone needing nutritional support during times of detox, stress, or transition. So in terms of how nettle supports detox, nettle strengthens and nourishes the lymphatic system while gently encouraging the movement of fluids and waste, supporting both detox and revitalization. So kind of wrapping up here as a little review, the liver is our internal filter. The lymph system is our cleanup crew, and herbs like dandelion, burdock, and nettle support these systems naturally and gently. So that, I hope, provided a little overview of how the liver and the lymph are working to support our natural detoxification processes, and with how different herbs can support those processes. I really appreciate you coming across this, watching this video. I hope it was educational for you. I would love to hear any of your feedback, any of your questions. I'm such an herb nerd, so please reach out to me, brujanaturalofferings@gmail.com. And yeah, let me know what you want to hear about. I have a whole schedule for the rest of 2025, but if there are specific topics or questions that you want me to do a little video on, I'm more than happy to do that. All right, thanks y'all. I really appreciate you being here, and see you next time.